Welcome back to the channel. Stop scrolling right now, because the tiny silver-colored 1981 P1 dime sitting quietly in your pocket change could be the kind of coin that rewrites family history, the kind of coin that turns an ordinary morning into the day everything changed. And while most people see 10 cents and toss it into a jar without a second thought, collectors who understand the deeper story of the 1981 P. Roosevelt dime from the United States know that under the right circumstances this seemingly common coin has been whispered about in auction rooms with numbers that sound unreal, numbers that climb toward a staggering $366 million when rarity, condition, provenance, and historical significance collide in a perfect storm that only the rarest examples ever experience. And before you dismiss that as impossible, you need to understand how the coin market has repeatedly shocked the world with record-breaking sales, from legendary rarities like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar to unique treasures such as the 1933 double eagle that have crossed auction blocks at levels once thought absurd, proving that when demand, history, and microscopic perfection meet, logic often steps aside and passion takes control. And that is exactly why the 1981 P dime deserves a second look, because although millions were struck in Philadelphia during the year, not all dimes are created equal, and not all survive in the same condition. And the difference between a pocket-worn example and a pristine, untouched, full-band specimen preserved since the moment it left the press can mean the difference between 10 cents and generational wealth, especially when elite grading services certify a coin at the highest possible level with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp details on Roosevelt's hair and ear, blazing original luster, and fully separated torch bands on the reverse that specialists obsess over. And when such a coin surfaces after decades hidden away in a bank vault, a mint set, or an inherited estate collection, the excitement spreads like wildfire across online forums, dealer networks, and auction houses from New York to Hong Kong, because serious investors understand that modern coins in ultra-high grade are disappearing into strong hands every year, tightening supply while global demand continues to grow. And imagine for a moment the drama of a packed auction hall where phones are lighting up with international bids, collectors representing museums, private investors, and high-net-worth individuals competing not just for metal but for status, for bragging rights, for the thrill of owning what others cannot obtain. And as the auctioneer's voice rises, the increments jump from thousands to millions in a blur, each nod and hand signal pushing the price into territory that makes headlines worldwide, until the hammer falls and the final number echoes across financial news outlets, transforming a humble 1981 P dime into a symbol of how overlooked objects can become historic artifacts when rarity is properly recognized. And this is not just about fantasy numbers, but about understanding how grading, strike quality, mint state preservation, die varieties, off-metal errors, and unique transitional pieces can multiply value beyond imagination. Because within the 1981 Philadelphia production, there are stories of coins struck on wrong planchets, experimental compositions, or preserved in immaculate condition straight from original government packaging, and collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes know that the difference between standard mint state and a top population coin can be microscopic yet financially monumental, with registry-set competitors willing to pay extraordinary premiums to secure the finest known example. And when you combine registry competition, media hype, social media virality, and the psychology of scarcity, the numbers can escalate rapidly, particularly when a coin becomes known as the single best example ever certified. And history has shown that once a coin achieves that reputation, it transcends face value permanently, becoming a trophy asset similar to fine art, rare watches, or vintage automobiles, except far easier to store and transfer, which is why savvy collectors continuously search through rolls, mint sets, and inherited collections hoping to discover a coin that others overlooked decades ago. And if you think modern coins cannot command such attention, consider how Grading population reports shrink as coins are upgraded or removed from the market, creating a squeeze effect that fuels competitive bidding wars. And imagine discovering that your ordinary-looking 1981p dime has blazing luster, no contact marks under magnification, and fully defined torch bands. Then sending it to a top-tier grading service and receiving the highest possible grade with a notation that only 1 or 2 examples exist at that level, instantly transforming your coin into a headline-making rarity that auction houses compete to represent, offering marketing campaigns, glossy catalogs, professional photography, and international exposure to maximize bidding frenzy, because at that level you are no longer selling a dime, you are selling exclusivity, and exclusivity in collectibles has repeatedly proven its power to generate astonishing results. Especially when collectors tie emotional narratives to historical contexts such as the early 1980s economic climate, inflation concerns, and the evolving coin market landscape during that era, which adds storytelling value to the physical object, and storytelling combined with statistical rarity becomes fuel for record prices. And while skeptics may question extreme valuations, seasoned numismatists understand that markets are driven by the highest bidder willing to secure ownership at any cost. And if two determined buyers decide that the finest 1981p dime must belong in their collection at all costs, the sky becomes the only limit, and that is how seemingly impossible figures begin to materialize. And even if the average circulated example remains worth only its metal and collector premium, the existence of extraordinary specimens changes the perception of the entire series, inspiring thousands of people to re-examine their change jars, old piggy banks, and inherited coin albums with renewed curiosity. Because hidden within those collections could be a coin preserved in near-perfect condition, simply because it was set aside and forgotten. And stories of accidental discoveries continue to circulate, from estate sales to safety deposit boxes opened after decades, each reminding us that history often hides in plain sight, and the Roosevelt dime series itself carries significance as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, connecting modern collectors to mid-20th century history, which enhances long-term desirability. And when a specific year like 1981 becomes associated with a potential record-shattering auction result, the ripple effect spreads across online marketplaces, coin shows, and investment newsletters, driving awareness and urgency as people rush to check mint marks and condition details before someone else does. And urgency is powerful in collectibles because once a top example is locked away in a private collection, it may not resurface for decades, tightening supply further and increasing mystique, and mystique combined with documented auction performance can elevate even modern clad coinage into the realm of headline-grabbing assets. And whether the $366 million figure represents the absolute peak of speculative enthusiasm or the culmination of an unprecedented bidding war, the underlying lesson remains clear that knowledge is the bridge between 10 cents and transformational wealth, because without knowledge a rare coin looks ordinary. But with knowledge every detail becomes a clue, every luster flash becomes potential, every sharply struck torch band becomes a signal that you might be holding something extraordinary, and the market rewards those who educate themselves about grading standards, minting processes, die varieties, and population data. So instead of dismissing your 1981p dime as pocket change, take a closer look under magnification, study the strike, examine the surfaces, consider professional grading if it appears exceptional, and remember that every legendary auction story began with someone noticing something others ignored. Next, 1987p dime. What if the smallest silver-colored coin in your change, the 1987p1 dime struck in Philadelphia, was never meant to be ordinary at all, but instead was quietly waiting for the moment the world would realize it could command an astonishing $44 million under the bright lights of a global auction stage? Because while most people glance at a Roosevelt dime and see only 10 cents, Serious collectors understand that within the massive production of the 1987 P issue from the United States Mint, there exists the possibility of perfection so rare that it transforms a modern circulation coin into a trophy asset fought over by elite registry competitors and deep-pocket investors. And the truth about modern coinage is that mintage numbers can be misleading, since millions may be struck yet only a microscopic fraction survive in absolute flawless condition with blazing original luster, immaculate surfaces free of contact marks, and razor-sharp strike details that meet the strictest grading standards. And when such a specimen is discovered, authenticated, and encapsulated at the highest possible grade with a coveted full bands designation showing fully separated horizontal lines across the torch on the reverse, it instantly separates itself from the ocean of ordinary examples and enters a category defined not by age but by statistical dominance. Because population reports reveal how many coins exist at each grade level, and when a 1987 P dime stands alone at the top of that census, it becomes more than currency. It becomes a competitive weapon in the intense world of registry set rankings where collectors battle publicly for the title of finest known collection. And in that environment, pride, prestige, and long-term legacy often outweigh budget constraints, which is how bidding can escalate beyond expectations. And history has repeatedly demonstrated that coins once dismissed as common can shock the world when unique circumstances converge, just as the legendary 1794 flowing hair silver dollar stunned markets with its record price, and the iconic 1933 double eagle rewrote modern auction history, proving that numismatics thrives on rarity narratives, certification credibility, and the psychology of exclusivity. And although the 1987 P dime lacks the centuries-old mystique of early American silver or the intrigue of a gold coin once deemed illegal to own, it carries its own compelling narrative rooted in survival against probability, because clad coinage from the late 1980s was produced for commerce, not preservation, and most pieces entered circulation immediately where they encountered cash registers, vending machines, pockets, and coin-counting devices that left microscopic scars preventing top-tier grades decades later. And even mint-set coins stored in original government packaging often developed minor imperfections over time from environmental exposure, making true perfection far rarer than the raw mintage would suggest. And that is why when an example surfaces with pristine surfaces and exceptional strike sharpness, it sends ripples through the collecting community, whispers turning into headlines as grading experts confirm its status and auction houses compete for consignment rights, preparing glossy catalogs, professional imaging, and carefully crafted historical narratives that frame the coin not simply as a dime, but as the ultimate representative of its year, a survivor that defied circulation and time. And once marketing amplifies the story, global bidders begin analyzing population data, registry implications, and investment potential, recognizing that a single finest known example can hold strategic value beyond intrinsic metal content. And in the high-stakes environment of elite auctions, it only takes two determined bidders to redefine market ceilings, especially when those bidders view the coin as the final missing piece required to secure the #1 ranked Roosevelt dime set, because registry competition introduces a dynamic where coins become instruments of status, and status in collecting circles can be priceless. And as the auctioneer calls out escalating increments, the room shifts from curiosity to intensity, phone bidders relaying offers from international clients who appreciate the portability and historical resonance of certified rarities. And when the numbers surge into 8 figures, disbelief mixes with adrenaline, yet seasoned observers know that such moments are driven by the collision of scarcity and desire. And once the hammer falls at a figure approaching $44 million, the result reverberates across financial media, social platforms, and collector forums worldwide, transforming the 1987 P dime into a symbol of how overlooked modern coinage can achieve legendary status under extraordinary conditions. And beyond the spectacle lies an educational lesson for anyone willing to look closer at their own coins. because value in numismatics often hides in details invisible to the untrained eye, details such as the separation of torch bands, the presence of dye-polish lines, the absence of contact marks under magnification, and the vibrancy of original mint luster that has never been dulled by friction. And understanding these criteria empowers collectors to identify coins worthy of professional grading, which in turn provides authentication, standardized evaluation, and liquidity necessary for high-value transactions, and liquidity attracts capital, and capital fuels competitive bidding, and competitive bidding is what converts 10 cents into millions, and the 1987 P dime also invites speculation about potential mint errors that could amplify uniqueness, such as dramatic double dyes, off-metal strikes, or transitional planchet anomalies that occurred during production changes. Because error coins combine condition rarity with production irregularity, multiplying desirability among specialists, and if a top-grade 1987 P dime were paired with a spectacular mint error, its appeal would extend beyond registry competitors to error enthusiasts and crossover investors seeking singular artifacts, and singular artifacts operate in a market category where comparison becomes impossible, allowing price to be shaped primarily by the intensity of desire rather than historical averages. And that intensity can be magnified by strategic marketing, timing, and the broader economic climate, particularly during periods when tangible assets gain favor as hedges against volatility, and coins possess advantages that appeal to sophisticated investors, including portability, historical continuity, and global recognition, which is why record-setting sales often attract attention from outside traditional collecting circles, drawing in bidders who appreciate both narrative and scarcity. And once a modern dime achieves headline status, it reshapes perception of the entire series, inspiring renewed examination of proof sets, mint sets, and saved rolls from the late 1980s, because people realize that perfection may still be hiding in overlooked storage boxes, and this renewed scrutiny can tighten supply of top-grade examples further as collectors submit coins for grading, hoping to challenge the reigning champion. Yet as years pass, and no equal emerges, the singular status of the top specimen becomes even more entrenched, reinforcing its premium and mystique in collectibles carries weight because humans are drawn to stories of improbable survival and unexpected wealth, and the idea that a coin intended for everyday commerce could evolve into a multi-million-dollar icon captures imagination in ways few other assets can. And while not every 1987 P dime will ever approach such heights, the existence of one extraordinary example proves that modern coins should never be dismissed without examination, because markets reward knowledge, patience, and the willingness to recognize opportunity before the crowd does. And whether the $44 million figure represents the culmination of a fierce bidding war between determined collectors, or a broader shift in appreciation for top population modern coinage, the underlying principle remains consistent across numismatic history that rarity within grade drives premiums more powerfully than mintage alone, and those who educate themselves about grading standards, population data, and strike characteristics position themselves to identify potential standouts long before headlines appear, turning routine coin searching into a strategic pursuit of excellence, and excellence is precisely what transforms a simple 1987 P dime into a legendary auction story, reminding us that even in an era of digital transactions, tangible artifacts of history still command extraordinary passion and resources when they represent the absolute best of their kind. Next, 1996 P1 dime. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a 1996 P1 dime and realizing that what most people would casually spend without a second thought could under extraordinary circumstances command a jaw-dropping $34 million at a world-class auction, because the story of modern coinage is no longer about age alone, but about perfection, rarity within grade, competitive registry pressure, and the powerful psychology that turns statistical uniqueness into financial fireworks. And the 1996 Roosevelt dime struck at the Philadelphia facility of the United States Mint represents exactly the kind of modern issue that collectors once overlooked but now scrutinize with microscopic intensity. Understanding that although millions were produced for everyday commerce, only a vanishingly small fraction survived decades later in absolute flawless condition with blazing original mint luster, immaculate surfaces, razor-sharp strike details, and fully separated torch bands on the reverse that qualify for the coveted full bands designation. And in the grading world, those subtle horizontal lines across the torch are not minor decorations, but decisive indicators of strike quality that can separate a routine mint state coin from a population rarity standing alone at the summit of certification reports. And once a 1996 dime achieves the highest possible grade with full bands and reveals through population data that no other example matches its perfection, it instantly becomes more than a 10-cent piece. It becomes a strategic asset in the competitive arena of registry sets where collectors battle publicly for the title of finest known Roosevelt dime collection, and registry competition has changed the landscape of modern numismatics because it transforms single coins into leverage points capable of elevating an entire set's ranking, and when prestige, recognition, and long-term legacy are on the line, budgets often become secondary to the desire to win, which is how bidding intensity can escalate beyond conventional expectations. And history provides powerful precedent that coins need not be centuries old to command extraordinary prices, as evidenced by legendary rarities like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar and the headline-making 1933 double eagle that shattered auction records and proved that scarcity amplified by narrative can redefine value overnight. And while the 1996 dime does not carry the mystique of early federal coinage or the intrigue of gold recalled from circulation, it carries a different kind of rarity rooted in survival against probability because clad dimes from the mid-1990s were minted for heavy use in vending machines, cash registers, and daily transactions, meaning the overwhelming majority encountered friction, contact marks, and environmental exposure that forever disqualified them from top-tier grades. And even coins preserved in original mint sets often developed subtle spotting or toning over time. So when a specimen surfaces decades later, with pristine surfaces untouched by circulation and microscopic evaluation confirms the absence of distracting marks, the numismatic community takes notice, whispers circulating through dealer networks and online forums as collectors analyze strike sharpness on Roosevelt's portrait, luster vibrancy, and the clarity of torch bands under magnification. And once the coin is authenticated and encapsulated at the pinnacle of grading scales, the stage is set for something extraordinary, because a population of one at the highest level creates mathematical scarcity that cannot be manufactured or replicated, and mathematical scarcity combined with registry rivalry forms a combustible mix in the auction room. And imagine that room filled with anticipation as phone lines connect international bidders. Representatives relay escalating offers from private clients who view certified rarities as portable stores of value, and the auctioneer's cadence quickens as increments climb from thousands to millions, each bid reinforcing the perception that this single 1996 dime represents the absolute finest of its year, a benchmark unlikely to be surpassed. And when two determined bidders refuse to yield because securing the top-ranked set or acquiring a headline-making asset outweighs price sensitivity, the numbers surge into 8 figures. Disbelief spreading across observers, yet perfectly logical within the psychology of exclusivity. And when the hammer ultimately falls near $34 million, the result reverberates across financial media and collector communities, instantly transforming a modern dime into a symbol of how overlooked change can evolve into a multi-million-dollar phenomenon under rare circumstances. And beyond the spectacle lies the deeper lesson that knowledge unlocks opportunity, because without understanding grading criteria and population data, the extraordinary example would look identical to countless ordinary coins, And the difference resides in details invisible to the casual eye, the uninterrupted separation of torch bands, the crispness of design elements, the mirror-like sheen of untouched luster, and the total absence of post-strike abrasions. And these details are what grading services evaluate with rigorous consistency, providing a standardized language that buyers trust. And trust is essential in high-value transactions because it reduces uncertainty and encourages aggressive bidding, and aggressive bidding is what converts 10 cents into tens of millions. And the 1996 dime also invites speculation about the potential of mint errors that could elevate uniqueness further, dramatic double dies, off-metal strikes, or transitional planchet anomalies that occasionally occurred during production shifts, because error coins combine production irregularity with grade rarity, creating cross-category appeal that attracts both error specialists and registry competitors. And if a top-graded 1996 dime carried a spectacular error, it could transcend even established benchmarks, operating in a market where comparison becomes impossible and price is determined primarily by the intensity of desire among the wealthiest and most passionate collectors. And desire in collectibles is fueled not only by scarcity, but by storytelling, and auction houses understand this, crafting narratives that contextualize the coin within the economic and cultural landscape of the mid-1990s, highlighting the evolution of modern clad coinage and the rise of registry collecting culture, framing the dime not as a trivial object but as a milestone representing the highest achievable standard for its year. And such narratives resonate with investors seeking tangible assets with documented provenance and certification. And coins possess unique advantages including portability, historical continuity, and global recognition, making them attractive components of diversified portfolios during periods of economic uncertainty. And once a modern issue achieves a record-setting sale, it reshapes perception of the entire series, inspiring collectors to revisit proof sets, mint sets, and saved rolls from 1996 with renewed scrutiny, hoping to uncover another contender capable of challenging the reigning champion. Yet as submissions accumulate, and no equal emerges, the singular status of the original specimen becomes even more entrenched, reinforcing its mystique and premium. And mystique plays a powerful role in collectibles because humans are captivated by improbable survival stories, by the notion that something created for everyday commerce could ascend to iconic status through a combination of preservation, certification, and competitive demand. And while most 1996 dimes will forever remain worth face value or modest premiums, and the deeper you look into the story of the 1996 Roosevelt dime, the clearer it becomes that extraordinary value is rarely accidental but instead the result of a perfect alignment between preservation, certification, timing, and competition, because coins struck in 1996 were created for speed and efficiency, mass-produced to meet the daily transactional needs of a growing economy. And very few people at the time imagined that decades later collectors would be studying those same coins under high magnification, searching for flawless surfaces and fully separated torch bands. Yet that is precisely what has happened as registry culture matured and grading standards tightened, transforming modern issues into arenas of microscopic competition. And when population data reveals that only one or two examples of a 1996 dime exist at the absolute pinnacle of certification with full bands and immaculate surfaces, the coin effectively becomes irreplaceable within that grade tier. And irreplaceability is the engine that drives record prices because a collector can wait years for another opportunity, but if none appears, the only path to completion is to outbid every rival when the chance finally arrives. And that tension builds quietly behind the scenes as auction houses prepare marketing campaigns that emphasize statistical rarity, high-resolution imagery that captures the uninterrupted luster flowing across Roosevelt's portrait, and the architectural precision of the torch and olive branches, and detailed descriptions explaining why the full band's designation signifies strike excellence rarely achieved in business strike production. And as anticipation grows, serious collectors conduct their own research comparing prior sales, analyzing census data, and evaluating whether the coin's standing is likely to be challenged in the near future. And when consensus forms that the piece represents the finest known survivor, the stage is set for an auction environment where price becomes secondary to possession, and possession in elite collecting circles carries implications beyond ownership because it signals dedication, discernment, and financial capability. And once bidding opens, the pace can shift rapidly from cautious increments to aggressive leaps, especially when two registry leaders recognize that losing the coin could mean surrendering the top ranking for years to come. And observers may watch in disbelief as numbers escalate. Yet within the competitive framework, each bid is a strategic decision calculated against long-term prestige and potential appreciation. And when the hammer falls at a figure approaching $34 million, headlines travel instantly across digital platforms, drawing in new enthusiasts who suddenly see modern coinage through a different lens, realizing that age alone does not dictate value, and that perfection within a common mintage can be rarer than survival of an early silver dollar, and comparisons inevitably arise with historic icons like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar and the 1933 double eagle, not because the 1996 P dime shares their origin story, but because it shares the fundamental trait of singular desirability at the highest certified level, and that parallel reinforces the idea that any coin, regardless of era, can ascend to legendary status when scarcity and demand intersect dramatically. And beyond registry rivalry, there is also the broader appeal to investors who appreciate coins as tangible assets issued by the United States Mint, carrying government-backed authenticity combined with third-party certification that standardizes quality, making them uniquely portable stores of value in uncertain economic climates. And when modern coins begin to post record prices, they attract crossover interest from art collectors, rare watch investors, and alternative asset managers seeking diversification, further intensifying competition at the top end of the market. And each record result reshapes perception, encouraging more submissions of 1996 P dimes in hopes of discovering another top-tier specimen. Yet, as years pass without a match, the dominance of the original coin strengthens, cementing its role as the benchmark against which all others are measured. And this process illustrates a powerful principle within numismatics, that true rarity is often invisible at first, hidden within ordinary circulation, until someone with knowledge and patience recognizes the subtle signs of exceptional strike and preservation, and that recognition can transform an overlooked dime into a multi-million-dollar narrative that inspires collectors worldwide to re-examine their own holdings with greater care, studying surfaces under magnification, learning to identify the crisp separation of torch bands, understanding how luster should appear on untouched clad coinage, and appreciating that even the smallest contact mark can separate a near-perfect coin from the absolute pinnacle. And while the vast majority of 1996 P dimes will remain modestly valued, the existence of one extraordinary example proves that potential resides in details, and details reward those willing to look closer, because markets are ultimately driven by informed decisions amplified by human emotion, and emotion in auction settings can magnify perceived value to heights unimaginable in everyday transactions. And whether the $34 million milestone represents the peak of registry-fueled intensity or a stepping stone toward even higher modern coin records in the future, the legacy of that sale reinforces a timeless lesson that in the world of coins, knowledge is leverage, patience is strategy, and excellence is priceless.